Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to my introduction to the respiratory system class. This class is a part of my systems series where I am going through each system in the body, and we're going to talk about what that system does, why it is so important, and what we can do to strengthen and nourish that system. By the end of this class, I hope that you will have a good understanding of what the respiratory system is, why it is so important, and how you can strengthen and nourish yours, because we all have one. Kind of a silly question, but why is this system so important and why should we care? Well, for one, without breathing, we will die. But also, it's important to remember that if this system is not functioning properly, it can really hinder our quality of life. So the main job of the respiratory system, just a regular summary, is it helps us to breathe, right? But what it's really doing is exchanging gases within the body, mainly oxygen and carbon dioxide. The lungs trade oxygen for carbon dioxide with the bloodstream, and I will explain this action further shortly. The respiratory system also helps to protect our body from dust and other particles that may be in the air. It helps to regulate the pH levels within our body. It helps us to produce speech. It helps us to smell, and it helps to protect us against infections. So let's talk a little bit about the anatomy of the respiratory system. We can divide the entire respiratory system into two categories. You have the upper respiratory system and the lower respiratory system. Some of the organs involved in the upper respiratory tract include the nose, the mouth, the pharynx, which is also the throat, and the larynx, also known as the voice box. Some of the organs involved in the lower respiratory tract include the trachea, which is also known as the windpipe, bronchi and bronchioles. So the bronchi are these two branches of the trachea that enter into the lungs, and the bronchioles are these smaller airways that branch off of the bronchi. We have the lungs themselves and the alveoli. It's pretty cool. So I want you to keep in mind that this is just an intro to the respiratory system. So we're not going to dive all the way into this system. I just want you to have a good understanding of what it is and why you need it. So for a quick summary, the air comes in through our nose and our mouth. It travels down the pharynx, through the larynx, and into the trachea. The trachea splits into two bronchi, each one leading into a lung. Inside of the lungs, the bronchi branch into smaller tubes called the bronchioles, and they end in these tiny sacs called alveoli. The alveoli are surrounded by capillaries, tiny little capillaries, and the alveoli trades with the capillaries, passing oxygen from the air that we have breathed in, and trading that oxygen with the blood and receiving carbon dioxide from the blood to then be exhaled. Some fun facts that I want to share with you about the respiratory system include you breathe around 20,000 times a day. That's around 7 billion times a year. The lungs have a surface area about the size of a tennis court. Imagine that. Imagine taking your lungs and spreading them out. So, a lot of our organs and the tissue in our body folds on top of each other and is layered. Spreading all of that out, it could cover a tennis court. And that just blows my mind. Your lungs are the only organs. It's the only organs in our body that can float on water. Certain tissue in your lungs can actually regrow. And as time goes on, science is finally starting to catch up with the knowing that the body's ability to regenerate is amazing. It's incredible. I do truly believe our body to be one of the most, aside from the planet itself, the most amazing self-regulating technology that there is. And when we give it the nutrients or the data that it needs to function properly, it's amazing of things that we haven't even been able to conceptualize yet. It's awesome. So let's talk about some of the common ailments of the respiratory system. Asthma. Asthma is one of the first ones, and most people have heard of asthma, even if they have not experienced it themselves. And asthma is a chronic condition where the airways become inflamed and narrow, and this can block proper airflow and make breathing really difficult. Asthma is a condition that you can be born with, Oftentimes it's mentioned as a genetic predisposition, or it can develop over time from exposure to toxins and allergens. The common cold is a viral infection that mostly affects the upper respiratory system. The flu is a more severe viral infection. And for both the common cold and the flu, you can experience a runny nose, achy joints, chest and head congestion. And that's just to name a few symptoms. If you've ever had a flu, you know it is not pleasant. Pneumonia. Pneumonia is an infection that inflames the alveoli and can lead to the sacs. Remember, the alveoli are those little sacs around the bottom of your lungs that trade oxygen and carbon dioxide. So those sacs can, if you have an infection that is affecting those little sacs, they can become filled with fluid or pus. And this can be caused by viruses, bacteria, or even some fungi. Pneumonia can cause a high fever, coughing with phlegm, chest pain, and difficulty breathing. COPD is another common one that stands for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And this is actually an ailment that is a group of progressive lung diseases like chronic bronchitis and emphysema. And COPD is usually a result of lifestyle choices like smoking, drinking, and poor nutrition. These are just a few examples of some respiratory diseases. And symptoms can tell you, I want you to pay attention to symptoms. Our body will tell us when it needs love, when it needs some support, when something is going on inside of us, once we learn how to pay attention and recognize those signs. So some signs that your body might give you if your respiratory system needs support includes coughing, difficulty breathing, excessive mucus in your sinuses, your throat, and your chest pain, dizziness, fatigue or weakness, and frequent infections. If you're getting pneumonia all of the time, or if you catch every cold that goes around, your respiratory system might be in a weakened state and needs some support. So before we start diving into how we can care for the system, let's talk about some things that we know can cause harm to the respiratory system. Some of these things include smoking. Smoking can cause damage to the airways and the alveoli sacs. If you don't know, if you haven't watched any of my other classes, I've got a bit of a speech impediment and you may or may not recognize it, but I like to mention it in every video anyways. So smoking cigarettes and other manufactured products that are usually saturated in deadly chemicals puts your entire body at risk, but especially the lungs, because chemicals have harmful effects on the body. Vaping and e-cigs are just as bad, if not worse, for the respiratory system and the entire body. And also something a lot of people don't know is when you smoke vapes or e-cigarettes, they actually heat up the tissue in your lungs. It's like putting your lungs in the oven, and it increases the absorption rate of the nicotine and other chemicals, which is why some people, they'll feel lightheaded more, or get dizzy, or they get even more addicted to the nicotine in these products because your body is absorbing it in a different way. Artificial fragrances like air fresheners, perfumes, laundry detergents, household cleaning supplies, shampoos, conditioners, and honestly, just most of the commercial items sold to us in the United States are loaded in toxic chemicals that damage our respiratory systems and the rest of the body. And of course, poor nutrition. Every part of our body requires nutrients for proper function. If we do not give our bodies what they need to thrive, over time they will start to degrade and lose function. As a medical herbalist and holistic lifestyle advocate, one of my favorite things to do is talk about plants and how we can work with them to achieve sustained vitality. I like to remind everyone that herbs work with us, not for us. To get the most support from herbs, or anything really, it is important to view health as a lifestyle. It's not just about what supplements that you take, but also the food that you eat and the exercise that you do, the people that you surround yourself with, the books that you read, and the music that you listen to, and so on. Your health is 100% your responsibility, and it requires consistent effort every day. And I know it can seem overwhelming at first, but it doesn't have to be. If you would like to work closely with me to set and achieve your goals, visit communitynourishment.org/offerings to book your consultation with me. So what nutrients do the lungs need the most? These are just some of them. Magnesium is always at the top of my list. If you do not already know, I am a little obsessed with magnesium, and we need it for every part of our body. Magnesium helps to relax the bronchial muscles, and that helps to improve airflow throughout the system. Vitamin C strengthens the immune system and protects the lung tissue. Vitamin A supports the repair and maintenance of the lung tissue and the health of the mucous membranes. The mucous membranes within our body are so very important and play such a vital role in our health, and I will make a separate video on that sometime. We also need vitamin D, vitamin E, omega-3 fatty acids, selenium, and there's always more. We need nutrients to be able to function optimally. So remember to nourish yourself. Here are some examples of some foods that you can consume on a regular basis to not only support your lungs and your respiratory system, but your entire body. Fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables are loaded with antioxidants and nutrients that support the entire body. Fatty fish, salmon, tuna, sardines. You want to make sure that you are sourcing your fish from a reputable, safe source, as a lot of fish products out there are loaded with mercury and heavy metals. But if you can find a good source, the omega-3 content in the good sources help to reduce inflammation and strengthen the lungs, among many other things that omega-3s do in the body. Garlic and onions are always my go-to for anything with the respiratory tract. These really help to open the respiratory system and fight bacteria and viruses that can harm this system. Something I like to make is I'll take, like, let's say a pint of honey, and I'll chop up really fine about 3 cloves of garlic. I'll chop up, a quarter, maybe less, of a purple onion, mix that into the honey, throw a dash of cayenne pepper in there and let it sit. And it can sit for a very long time. I still have some that I made a few months ago. And whenever you start to feel, if you are tuned into your body and paying attention, your body will let you know when you begin to develop a cold or develop an ailment. We do not catch colds, we develop colds. Got that one from Paul Bragg. So whenever, if your body's starting to send you those signals that it needs some support, you can just go in and take a teaspoon or even a tablespoon of that honey mixture. Nuts and seeds, nuts like walnuts, almonds, flax seeds, chia seeds, sunflower seeds. A lot of these seeds, they contain vitamin A, magnesium, and healthy fats if you can't find a good source of fish or you just don't eat fish. Also, green tea has been shown to improve the function of really the whole body. Movement is so important for the body. And honestly, movement is a nutrient, if you ask me, and it's just as important as food. Movement, again, so important for the body and the respiratory system. I highly recommend taking a couple of walks every day, truly after each meal, just going for a 10, 15, 20-minute walk after each meal, if not working out for at least 30 minutes a day. Regular movement that gets your blood rate up will support your body's circulatory system, and the lungs are a huge part of the circulatory system, and vice versa. These two systems really depend on each other, and if you haven't yet, I recommend going and watching my Intro to the Cardiovascular System class to learn more about this relationship and your cardiovascular system. So when you're moving, you increase the amount of oxygen that you can receive and share, and you help to give your lungs more capacity. So now we're going to start talking about some herbs. I really love talking about herbs. Before I dive into the herbs, though, I want to remind you that herbs are very much like people. In fact, we share around 90% of our DNA with plants. So I want you to remember that herbs do not just do things. They are not just good for things. Herbs are complex, special, and have a wide range of medicine to share with us, and they cannot be narrowed down to one system, one disease, one chemical, etc. So these herbs that I'm about to share with you are not just respiratory system herbs or just good for the respiratory system, but when used properly and in conjunction with a healthy lifestyle, they offer our respiratory system so much support. And always keep in mind that every body is different. So just because these herbs and the things that I am going to talk about can work with one person in this way does not necessarily mean that they will work for you or another person in this way. So herbal steams. When I tell you, I think people really underestimate the power of an herbal steam. And if you don't know what an herbal steam is, it is where you get a pot of water on the stove and you get it boiling. And then once it's boiling, you turn the heat off and you'll take a handful of herbs. I highly recommend, aromatic herbs, rosemary, thyme, peppermint, because it's going to be the volatile oils in these herbs that you will inhale and that are going to bring medicine into your body. So again, you get the pot of water boiling, you throw a handful of whether it's a single herb or a mixture of herbs into the pot and put a towel over your head. And then get as close as you comfortably can to the steam without it burning your face. You don't want to do that. And just take deep breaths in through your nose and through your mouth. Exhale and stand there for a few minutes, just breathing in that medicine. It's going to help to deliver it directly to your bloodstream as well. Elecampane. Oh, I make a joke at the markets that I would get this herb tattooed on my face. That's how much I love it. And while I'm not going to do that, I am excited to talk to you about Elecampane. So Elecampane has the potential to penetrate deep into your lungs and break up gunk and thick, sticky mucus. It even helps to work as a biofilm buster. So if there are pathogens that have built a fortress around themselves in your lungs, Elecampane can help to bust through that fortress and show those pathogens the door. And then you will cough the mucus up. You want to get it out. And once you've created the space, Elecampane helps to begin restoring the tissue in the lungs. Elecampane is also a great source of inulin, which is a prebiotic fiber. The Latin name for Elecampane is Inula helenium. And so that same thing that it's doing in the lungs, breaking up that mucus, getting it out, it can also do that for the upper digestive tract. You want to make sure that your mucous membranes in your digestive system are clean and able to function. And then while it's doing that, it's also helping to feed the good bacteria. Let me take that back. I don't know that there is good or bad bacteria, but it really helps to strengthen and nourish your gut microbiome. Mullein. A lot of people have heard about mullein, and something that I want to make clear is that mullein and lamb's ear are completely different plants. And a lot of times on the internet, I will see people talking about mullein and also refer to it as lamb's ear. A lot of people also talk about using mullein as toilet paper, and they call mullein the cowboy's toilet paper. And until you have experienced that, I highly recommend that you actually use mullein as toilet paper before you start suggesting other people to do it. So mullein helps to lubricate and nourish the mucous membranes of the respiratory system. Mullein will pull water from your body and direct it to the lungs for its demulsifying benefits. So especially if you have a dry cough and it hurts, mullein will help to rehydrate your lungs. But again, it's going to pull that water from other parts of your body, so you want to make sure that you are hydrated. Drink plenty of water when working with mullein. And now I'm only giving you guys just a little bit on each plant, and I really recommend diving into all of these plants. If you want a suggestion for good resources, visit communitynourishment.org/resources. Or again, work with me. Ask me all the questions that you'd like. Drop your questions in the comments below. I love questions, okay? Pleurisy root. Pleurisy root can also be very helpful in reducing inflammation in or surrounding the lungs, especially if you have inflammation in that sac around the lungs. It helps to reduce inflammation there. It helps to reduce pain and discomfort, and it can be very helpful if you have a hot, dry cough. Lobelia. I'm going to say that I love every herb because I really do love all of these herbs, and I really have a special relationship with Lobelia. I work with Lobelia oftentimes to relax my muscles and get a good night's rest. I've also seen Lobelia work wonders for restless leg syndrome, and that same relaxation property that Lobelia offers us helps really well to ease spasms and painful coughing and restriction in the chest. If you have tension, if you have tightness, if you have a cough that won't stop, it helps to just relax that, ease those spasms, and bring some relief to your respiratory system. Black pepper. I like to add some black pepper to my respiratory system formulas to assist in breaking up and clearing out thick, toxic mucus. Black pepper is stimulating. It helps to promote fluid circulation and even fight against pathogens. Astragalus. Astragalus is so very nourishing, and it uplifts our energy and our strength to fight off disease and heal the body. Astragalus is a tonic herb, meaning it works to restore function and proper nourishment to the body. And astragalus does have a special affinity for the respiratory system. So if you've been fighting a cold, or you've been fighting the flu, or you continue to develop colds over and over again in a short amount of times, I highly recommend working with astragalus, probably for either a few weeks to a few months, to really strengthen your your immune system, your respiratory system, and your body. Reishi mushroom. Reishi is an incredible immune tonic. Like astragalus, but also very different, reishi can strengthen our body's defense system by restoring energy to the body. Our body needs strength and energy to be able to fight off pathogens, to be able to bring itself back into a state of homeostasis. It needs strength to do so. And I really like working with herbs that strengthen our body without stimulating it too much. So I highly recommend reishi to so many people, especially people who deal with frequent infections, fatigue, or respiratory ailments. I have seen reishi work wonders for people that have had asthma since they were a child. Wild cherry bark. Wild cherry bark is soothing for coughs that can cause irritation, inflammation, and pain. It helps to calm the nerves in the respiratory tracts. I was taught and practiced for myself that a cold brew of the inner bark of this tree, slightly heated after brewing. So what you'll do is, it could be just a general rule of thumb. You can use 2 heaping tablespoons to a quart jar, fill it with cold water, shake it up after you put the lid on, stick it in the refrigerator overnight. The next morning, strain that, and then just slightly heat that infusion. And that will help to bring hydration and soothe the tissues of the respiratory tract. Marshmallow root and leaf. Marshmallow leaf and root is another favorite herb of mine that I prefer to brew and drink cold. Marshmallow helps too. So again, that cold brew, the same as I just said with the wild cherry bark, you can also do with the marshmallow root and the leaf. So marshmallow helps to soothe and nourish the mucous membranes of the respiratory tract, and it brings nutrients to strengthen the lungs. Really looking into the mucous membranes of our entire body is worth doing, getting to know them, how you can support them, what things you can do to not cause them any harm. And the last one that we're going to talk about in this video is Fengugreek. And the Fengugreek seed is a rejuvenating, nourishing herb. Fengugreek is useful for all mucus and lung congestion. Fengugreek is a key herb in my liquid lung formula, along with Elecampane, Pleurisy root, and black pepper. I crafted this remedy to support those who have been dealing with chronic lung ailments, such as long-term COVID, asthma, COPD, and the likes. And for the last 6 months, it has shown excellent results in a short amount of time. And I highly recommend keeping a bottle of liquid lung in your herbal arsenal. All right, everyone. That's it for the introduction to the respiratory system class. Thank you for watching. Please share your questions, your thoughts with me. I love questions. And remember, this is just an introduction to the respiratory system class. So as time goes on, I will be creating videos and content to build off of that foundation that we have laid. And I will be doing that with all of the other systems as well. So remember to go and watch those videos. And remember that I see you and I feel you because I am you. I love you. When you support community nourishment, you nourish your community. Thank you.